and just wave at me, just so we're all sure. That'd be great. Thank you. We are going to
with myself, Lucas Youngs. semi-final.
This is BBC Radio Stoke.
Good evening, welcome to tonight's Stoke City Fans Forum, live from the Bet365 Stadium, live on BBC Radio Stoke, and live with an audience full of Stoke City fans. Great. Like a true children's entertainer, I'm going to say, that was good, we can do better. So let's make some noise again. Now we know you're listening. Now we know we've got you. Lovely stuff. So here's how tonight's Fans Forum is going to work. We've got a selection of questions sent to us on @BBC Stoke Sport on what was known as Twitter, is now known as X. Don't ask me why, not getting into it. Thank you if you're one of those people that did send in those questions. We're also able to take in some questions a little bit later on from our studio audience. Let's crack on. I'm eager to get going. We're here until 7:30 and I want to get through as many questions as we can through our panellists who I can welcome to the stage right now. Please make some noise for the first team manager Alex Neil, co-chairman John Coates, and technical director Ricky Martin. Chaps, we've got to stop meeting like this. It's nice, isn't it? Thanks for joining us. Alex, we've done so many of these now. We could finish each other's. Thank you very much. I was worried. Do you know when I wrote that?
I was going to leave you hanging.
My heart was beating. I could see you doing it. Before we get started, actually, John, if you don't mind, I've got a bone to pick with these two. Because we've done, as I say, we've done a few of these panels now, speaking to the fans. I thought we had something special. Last week, parking, you cheated on me. I saw you there, chatting to the fans. That must have been nice. Yeah. Was that Ricky's idea? Ricky. Well, I'll tell you what, tell us a little bit about it, because in all seriousness, it seemed like a great event, and the reaction was fantastic on X/Twitter.
Yeah, it was my idea. I will take credit and kind of criticism as well. But no, we've all spoke about a connection with the fans and what we want to do, how we want to build that, and these events are brilliant, but we also need to probably do something a little bit different. And I decided to take Alex to a local pub and meet some Stoke City fans behind the scenes, and we didn't want to advertise it because we didn't know how that would go down, so we tried to keep it a little bit low key, but it got out and there was a good supporters in there, and it was a fantastic event. And Adrian Hurst, I've got to give him credit, we were talking about ideas in the summer about engagement with fans, the open day, some of the things we've done over pre-season and what we've got planned for the season as well, so it's not going to stop now, and we wanted to do something a little bit different from just a normal Q&A session like tonight, and it was behind the scenes. Got a free pint as well, so that was a bonus.
Was that poured by, I've heard you're a fantastic puller of the pint.
Well, I'm not great, but he didn't need to convince me much. I don't mind a beer, so it was it was worthwhile. It was good.
We're going to get started with the question. We've had loads sent in. There were a few questions sent in that you may actually see later on Stoke City's social channels, done by the Chief Operating Officer, Simon King. That's going out later after this event this evening, so that's one to keep an eye out for some of those questions. We did get loads in. Some of them we will try and answer as many as we can tonight. Some of them obviously may not. There will, however, be another forum like this one during the coming season. But we can crack on with the ones who sent. Lucas has got a question, if that's all right. Can we get started with that one, Alex? Because about an hour and a half ago, there was an announcement of Luke McNally joining the club. Do you want to tell us a little bit about bringing him in and how come you've decided to go with him as your 11th signing?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if anybody's aware, but we tried to get Luke in January. It was a target for us then. Obviously, the Harry Souttar scenario didn't play out as early as we would have liked. I mean, doing it in the last day that Leicester decided to come in wasn't ideal for us because it left us limited time to then do any work in that window, which I felt was a good window considering how little time we had. But Luke was one we met probably a couple of weeks before, and he wanted to come, but unfortunately, because of the time frame, he'd been presented with maybe 2 or 3 other opportunities, and obviously he wanted to take one of them up because we couldn't guarantee at any point that it was definitely going to happen here. So he's a player we've watched. Obviously he did well with Coventry last year. He's big, strong, quick, which is obviously what we're looking for in a centre-back, and he's still got all his best years ahead of him, so we feel for competition in that area, he's a real good one for us.
We'll talk about how important it is to have a good start to the season. This is a question from Andy Smith. To breed confidence, especially for new signings, how important will Saturday be to get that good start you're after?
Yeah, I don't think it's just going to start and end with Saturday, but I think that's the first step. I think if we do get a good start, the lads perform well, the fans get behind the team performs well, so obviously it's sort of a cycle, isn't it? The players play well, they win the game, the fans get behind the team, and then what happens is that momentum starts. So if we can get that for them, I think that will set them off in the right sort of frame of mind. I think it will certainly help them to integrate quicker, and hopefully we can try and hit the ground running. However, I don't think that just it stops at that one game. There's going to be blips along the road at some point. Some of these lads, as I've said, particularly the foreign lads, are going to need a little bit more time just to settle, I think. But certainly if we can start well, I think it'll help everything.
I bet they're excited to get going, the lads that you've mentioned that have come from abroad, because the Championship is just a league of its own, isn't it, in terms of the variation of teams you can face? Yeah,
and what we've found is, speaking to a lot of sort of foreign agents and foreign players, is they love the idea of the Championship. I'm not sure they love the reality of the Championship. Do you know what I mean? Particularly when you're going to some really difficult venues. You've got Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. You maybe 2-day games are away from home. You go to Plymouth, then you come back. You maybe need to go up to Sunderland or Middlesbrough, then you come back, and then you've got a midweek fixture. So yeah, I think the Championship's it's a relentless league. I think that we're going to need a big squad. We're going to need guys who, if we put the reliance on just 11 players, it's never going to last. So we're going to need to be able to sort of chop and change a little bit. And hopefully this season it'll be a bit more sort of horses for courses, shall we say. Whereas last year we didn't really have that flexibility at times, which I think we lacked.
The next one's for you as well. This is from Daniel Buxton. Stoke fans always have high expectations, which isn't a bad thing. Is it realistic to expect a good season following so many changes in the summer?
I hope so. That's the aim. But we're not giving ourselves any sort of cushion in the fact that, listen, we've brought a lot of bodies in. It will take time to integrate everybody. Not everybody's going to hit the ground running. That's a certain before we even start. However, what we're hoping is we've signed a lot of players for just now, if that makes sense. So these guys, most of them that we've brought into this point, try to think, because obviously we've still got a month of the window to go, but they're for just now. They're to get results just now. They're not to get results next year or the year after. So we're very conscious that we need to make a mark on this season, but also we need to look after the long-term sort of health of the team and the club. So there will be other signings that will come in that will probably reflect that.
Ricky, it's been a very busy window for you all so far. Can you share an insight, this is a question from Louis, on how the player recruitment process works?
Good question. So yeah, it works in, there's kind of some like 4 or 5 key pillars part of that. But I probably want to go back one more stage, because we brought Jared Dublin in as head of recruitment, and that process was quite, we spoke about we're going to an agency and we're going to go and look to recruit someone, and there was a little bit of noise about that, or why are we doing that and what's the reason for that. And I think what that's proven to us is that we could go to the network and find out what is out on the market, and we were able to do that. So a lot of work went on before we even dived into our recruitment. So we wanted to make sure we had the right head of recruitment in place, and Jared's come in, and no doubt there'll be some questions, and I've seen the questions coming about Jared as well, so I can answer that a bit more later. Regarding the process itself, well, we start to identify the player. We have an internal discussion, and we put video clips together. We look at the data, we look at his performances, we look at some the on-field data about injury and playing minutes, etc. We then share that with the coaching team. So it's not just only the recruitment, it then gets wider, and we all kind of review the player, and then we start to have discussions with the agent, and then we start making contact with the club. So that's the kind of the step process. The recruitment team work as a whole. It's not just one person, the whole team are working together, and we're looking to then try to bring that to an end as quickly as we can before obviously it gets announced out there. And then once we've got a deal agreed, the process continues with an internal discussions and medical, and then we do the media work. That I'm sure you see some great work that's been done this summer on announcing that player, and then we'll reveal the player. So that's kind of the process. That's not always carried out for every player. So you look at someone like Kiana Hoover and Ben Pearson, we didn't do all of them steps because they were already in the building last season, and we could speed that up. So we maybe move on from step 1 and 2, because we can then progress this to internal discussions and dialogue with the agent.
This question is probably not the right question to ask you in the middle of the transfer window. Do you enjoy it?
Wow. Yeah, I do enjoy it. It's been one of the best summers, but also one of the hardest summers I've ever had, with just the amount of work that we've had to do. Not every target that we've been in discussion with, we've landed as well. I'll be open with that. We've done a lot of work with players that we haven't been able to secure, and sometimes the fans don't see that, and I get frustrated by them ones that we can't get over the line as well. But the ones that we have got over the line, I've been really pleased, and the teamwork and the work behind the scenes with John Pelling that helps us regarding the finances side and where our budget is, from Chris Laird, who does all the paperwork and helps with the contracts and negotiations. It's a real team effort, and you can really see it. You can really see everyone come together, and I've mentioned already the media team. They've really stepped up this summer, and we've even got Lynn, the cleaner, involved in one of the adverts, which again makes me really proud, because she's worked at the training ground. She's there every day. That is part of what our football club's all about. And I came up with this random idea that I wanted her involved in the video, and fair play, the media team, they smashed it and they got it. But that really tried to get that engagement and that involvement between everyone, all the key stakeholders, everyone at the training ground, have been fantastic.
Look at you putting the director and technical director as well, planning all the videos. I like it. Do you know what I think? I'm going to embarrass the media team for a second, because when we were away in Benidorm, I basically had to set up camp in one of their hotel rooms, and they kept, because I wasn't part of the hotel, just dropping in an orange or a banana every now and again. So shout out to the media team. Big round of applause, because they've stepped up big time, haven't they? They've been class. Really good. And they got me bananas, which was appreciated. John and Ricky, this one is for both of you. This is from Ed. The question is, how has this season's rebuild differed from our first season of the Championship after relegation from the Premier League? And does this summer's spending potentially hamstring us for future campaigns if we don't go up this season? I think that probably is steered more towards yourself, John, if you want to answer that.
No, sure. If we look at our recruitment during this transfer window, I think it's clear and that our strategy is, when we're looking at emerging players or key talents, key assets, that they're the players that we're potentially looking to invest transfer funds in. So some of the more older players that we maybe brought in, we're probably there. They come in mainly on frees, etc., despite wages, etc. But very much the focus of that transfer investment is on those key assets, those emerging players, and that band of player. I know Ricky's been through the different aspects of the squad and how we try and build it with different types of players in different positions, but yeah, that investment, I suppose, the key thing we're trying to do now is really invest in those kind of emerging players.
Yeah, I think John just said that, and I spoke when I did the interview post-January window, that we wanted to have key assets in the building. We wanted to have established Championship players, so the likes of DJ have ticked that box off. We wanted to look at high potential and loan players, so Kiana Hoover fits in there, and we also wanted some cultural architects and the older experience of Wiseau, and then supporting all of them, we want the emergent talents, and I think we've seen some of the young academy players that have been integrated into the pre-season programme that will form part of that group, and then ultimately will become high potential, and then hopefully key assets, and that's what the dynamics of the squad, and that's what I've got on my board, and I can tell you it's changing every day, and I keep putting different players and trying to move up, because that dynamic is really important. You don't want to get a squad that's got loads of cultural architects and too old, and likewise you don't want a squad that's all high potential with loads of loans and all young players without established Championship players. So I think that dynamic is really important, and that's always been our discussion when we're looking at it. What does the balance look like? It's not just going for one type of player. That signing does have an impact on the next signing and so forth. So you look at the centre backs, for example, we brought Michael Rose in as a permanent signing, and then we've brought a lone player in alongside it. So we're starting to build a squad, but we also topping it up with a lone player as well.
Just touching on what you mentioned there, and how much of a process is it of a conversation actually between yourself, Alex, and yourself, Ricky, in terms of finding the right players for the squad in the end?
I'm surprised he's not called me. Normally he calls
every
me
10 minutes.
He calls me every 10 minutes and it's like, can we talk about this black? It's constant at the moment. We're in dialogue every day, lots of phone calls, lots of discussions. He's in my office, pre-training sessions, and we're talking about the squad. What am I working on for the next couple of hours? He goes out to train, comes back in. Have you done that? Have you called him? Have you chased him? And that's how we're working. And it's that kind of connection, because that's what he wants me here. That's what Jared's here. That's what the recruitment team are here for us to do. So he can concentrate on his prep and his coaching on the field. And while he's out there, we're working really hard behind the scenes to keep it moving. And hopefully we can breathe a little bit now, because we've got the players ready for the first game.
I would love to see your screen time on your phone.
It's got Alex Neil.
With a big warning sign on it as well. Alex, next question is for yourself. What difference have the new signings made to the atmosphere within the squad?
Yeah, it's really interesting, because that was one of the selling points when we're talking to any new player that we're recruiting. And the fact that, particularly if you're a younger player going anywhere and you're coming into a settled changing room, but it's an older changing room, sometimes it's really difficult to find where you're in the pecking order. And generally, when that's the case, you find yourself at the bottom of the pecking order. And I don't think that that's appealing for any young player that's coming to a club and trying to find their way. As we said earlier, obviously there is high expectations at Stoke, and naturally, because obviously the support that the owners give and the size of the club and the recent past in terms of being in the Premier League. So when you're bringing those young players in, it's really important that the training ground and that environment's a safe haven for them. You know, and they feel everybody's sort of equal, shall we say, and everybody's working together. So I think the environment now, with all the new players come in, feels really fresh. It feels energetic. It feels, it doesn't feel as if there's any hangover, if that makes any sense. So when I sort of first came into the club initially, the first feeling I sort of got was this hangover of what's happened over the last 4 or 5 seasons, you know, and it felt like a burden over the top of the lads' shoulders, over the top of the club, and I just feel as if we worked really, really hard to try and wipe that clean this summer, so there is no excuses as to what we do when we go forward, because you can only blame that for so long. I mean, at the end of the day, that's gone now. So these new lads have come in, have gave us freshness, they've gave us enthusiasm, they're really looking forward to the season and making their mark on the season, but also making their mark on Stoke in terms of what they can offer as individuals, but also collectively.
Is that what you're looking for, not just in terms of what they can offer on the pitch, but actually, these going to be good lads to have around? Because I remember at the training camp in Benidorm, there was a real cohesion, and you don't want to mess that up, do you? So it's important that they, Rick, I guess it's to you, that they have that in them as well, that they can adapt really easily. Yeah,
we talked about some of the engagement that me and Alex and the senior stakeholders are going to have, but the players need to have that engagement as well. And you saw on the open day, for the fans that came here, every player was outstanding and given the time and going down, getting autographs and photos and signing memorabilia. We had the cerebral palsy team on, and they were playing against the players. And then in the evening, the new signings turned up at Ricardo's and were again fantastic. So they know they've got a role to play as well, and that's something that I'm driving as well. That they need to engage with the fan base and the wider community, because it's really important.
Just in terms of atmosphere, and sticking with that for a second, another thing I noticed whilst we were away, and I think he'd been here for a week at this point, just how much they all love Paul Gallagher. Gally, as I often hear him called. But that, I mean, Alex, that was like a week, and it was already very clear that he was well respected amongst the players, and they all really got on with him. So I think you've spoken about it before, but actually the importance of having that with your staff as well. Yeah,
I think it's really the dynamic between the squad and the staff's vital, you know, and I think that when you bring in characters who are lively, to say the least, I think that's a good thing. You know, so for instance, we had a barbecue set up on the Wednesday evening, and just to sort of break the mood, most of the new lads need to sing. So the first thing Gally does is pull his guitar out and he's up strumming away and basically gives us a whole album of tunes. So for the rest of the lads that need to sing, it's such a settler for them. You know, and then what will happen is a lot of the younger boys having to go up, Gally will play the guitar in the background for them, and then and it's very different. Do you know what I mean? So, but it really does settle the mood. Yeah, and obviously I've known Gally a long time now and gave him his opportunities coaching initially, But to bring him here for what he'll add, the fact that he played for Stoke as well, I think was a big factor. You know, we have spoke about it. We want people who have got the Stoke DNA and they love the club. That's vitally important that we get as many of them together with the club as we try and grow it.
Living up to the surname with that guitar, isn't he? Can he sing like a Gallagher as well?
He's good. He's good.
Is he?
Yeah, because he's got no shame. He just doesn't care. Do you know what I mean? So, no, but it is. But if
I'm
you
not
look
sure
at
that's the
something and are
compliment
quite
you think it
nervous,
is.
you get nervous for them. You think, I'm not sure. But when you really don't care, then that's where he is, which is refreshing.
He's also a fantastic go-karter, if you didn't know. Absolutely, an absolute wizard on the karts. Right. Next question goes to yourself, Ricky. Is the club still looking to bring additional players in before the end of the transfer window? I know you've answered this a little bit already, but go for it.
Yes.
Next question, then. Do you want to expand on that at all? Or?
No, yeah, we now, like I said that phrase that we can now breathe. We feel we've done a lot of recruitment. We feel now we're putting together a squad that we can start to work with, and the manager and the coaching team can prepare for games. But we now know what we want to add to that, and we're going to be really selective on now where we go to, what type of profile that is. And like the manager and John have said, some of them might be key assets that come in the building that we might need to develop or spend some time with, and we're looking and we're active, and I don't want to say too much, but there's a lot of work already going on that we are actively looking, and no doubt we're going to be rumoured with another 50 odd players for the last 4 weeks. We get that, but we are actively going to be adding to the squad.
You've got to be good with names, haven't you, Alex? All the new names coming in, you've got to be good with remembering people's names.
Yeah, it's easy, but because I've been watching videos of them, I've been doing Zoom calls with them, I've been like when they get paraded, everybody just sees them for the first time. There's probably been 3 weeks of several meetings and discussions, and having watched the videos and then watching a live game and all that sort of stuff, trying to make sure that filter process that Ricky was talking about earlier, we want to avoid spending money and getting it wrong, because. And it's not necessarily getting it wrong by picking the wrong player or he hasn't got the quality that you expect, but sometimes it's about how they settle and all that sort of stuff. So there's so many different dynamics that we need to make sure we try and tick off to give the player, when they do walk in the building, the best opportunity of being the best that they can be.
That was a fantastic answer, and I was going to make a joke about calling Ben Wilmot Charlie or something like that. Okay. So fantastic. Don't expect anything else from you, Alex. Thank you. Ricky, this next question actually is also for you. We spoke about incomings. Sam wants to know, is it likely that any first-team players will leave the club during the period that we've got over the next month?
Okay, so I'd be disappointed if we don't get any inquiries for any of our players in any window, because if we don't get any inquiries, then we haven't got good players. So as a technical director, I've got to expect the phone to go, I've got to expect inquiries, I've got to expect rumours. We have no plans. We've got no plans to move any players out. But if we're going to be in an active squad and we're going to start to develop our squad and we're going to develop young talent, we're going to develop key assets, and we're going to have established championship players, I expect the market for us to actually fend off. Now, we spoke that in January we did some business on Harry Suter, and we feel really comfortable with that, and that's something that we may have to do at some point in the future. We've got to know as a football club in the Championship that at some point in some part of the windows you do need to reinvest back into the squad. So that's not here and now, but that might be in the future. So no, there's no players imminent going out the building, but like Alex said, while we're actively trying to bring people in, other clubs are doing the same. So should they want to come calling upon our players, then we will have a discussion and we'll have a very good price for them.
Alex, we talked about ins, we talked about outs there. Louise wants to know, what identity do you want the team to have?
Identity in terms of what the team looks like?
Let's go with yes.
Yeah.
That's all she's put.
Yeah, well, I think we want to be high energy. We want to be really good technically and retain the ball. Obviously, we want to try and create as many opportunities, score as many goals as we can, and try and deny the opportunity for the opponent to score, but also try and basically just smother them and take the game away from them. You know, I think that any of the fans that were at the Burton game, I thought was an outstanding performance in terms of in possession and out of possession, apart from the fact we should have scored more goals. You know, we had more chances in the game to score them more than we did, and I think that would be the one criticism at the moment that we need to improve on. But yeah, in terms of controlling the ball, controlling the game, not really giving them any sort of real sort of belief in the fact that they get something from the match is how we'd like to look next season. And that's not going to happen every game. There's going to be some stuffy games that we maybe need to scrape a 1-0 that I didn't think we had enough of last year. So yeah, at this moment in time, obviously winning's king and developing style as we go is a sort of secondary thing. But I do believe that if you play well often enough, you'll win more points.
Makes a lot of sense. The next question for you, John. This is from Daniel. There have been major changes in the first team and academy backroom staff this summer, probably far deeper than anyone expected. What has driven that? And whilst, of course, we hope Alex is manager for years to come, if it didn't pan out, does this mean yet another clear-out behind the scenes will be needed? Or are we setting up a structure to cope regardless of who is manager?
Well, I think that taking the question in order. So in terms of the changes, I think you've probably seen changes both on the football side, but also off the pitch on the commercial side as well. And people leave businesses for a variety of reasons, but when that happens, I think that's given us an opportunity to have a significant reset, and I think that's a good thing. I think that was maybe needed as a club, and it's actually something I think we to be excited about, because we've worked very hard in all those areas to bring people in who we believe will be in the club for the long term, and we're excited about that. I think both on the commercial side, on the football side, I genuinely feel there's a really good feeling about the place. You sense that. You're walking around and people there's a buzz about the place, and maybe a buzz that hasn't been there for a little while. And so I'm glad we've had a reset. I'm really pleased with the people we've brought in. I think they'll be great for the club, and I think they'll be with the club a long time.
Next question was about obviously the structure you've got in place, and obviously all hoping that Alex is still here, but will there be another restructuring, was the question, if that was to change?
No, clearly the people we brought in on the commercial side under Simon. In terms of on the football side, clearly Alex has got his direct team who work for him. All the other areas are what I'd call club appointments, and they're I believe they'll be with the club for a long time and grow with us.
We talked about Paul already, but actually Alex Morris is another appointment that you brought in, under 21s, and we spoke about him before and the work he's done at Crewe, but I guess for anyone that hasn't heard, your reasoning for bringing him in, Alex?
Yeah, Alex is... I didn't know Alex, so I went into Crewe, because obviously I knew the coach Dave Artell at the time. He just asked me to come in, have a look and see if there's anything that I could identify that they could try and improve. And I spent a couple of weeks in there, and Alex was somebody automatically that stood out to me. He stood out to me because his diligence in terms of his work, his enthusiasm for his job, but also his detail in terms of how he tried to help the players and how he wanted to try and progress. And he's a massive Stoke fan, so that also helps. And he's supported Stoke all his life, and he's local, and he's a very, very good coach. And not only that, he's got a unique set of skills in the fact that he's been a first-team manager, he's been an assistant manager at first-team level, and he's also coached at youth level all the way through to bring kids through. And I think the fact that we've brought the 20s so close with the first team, we wanted somebody who had all those traits. And the fact that he's on our doorstep, he supports Stoke, this is his club. I think when you add all that together, it's a no-brainer for us. And what you will see with Alex this year, every game that's possible, he'll be on the first-team bench with the first-team staff. So he'll be part of the first team setup as well as being under 20s coach, because I think a lot of people talk about trying to align the academy and try to bring the young players through. I think actually the process and actually doing it sometimes gets discarded, which is something we're really focused on. Like say Saul Sidibe is a great example in terms of how well he's done over the course of pre-season, and he's only 16 at the moment. So every day after training, Alex is in a room discussing what the session looks like. He'll deliver the same type of session the first team are getting, and then we'll reconvene afterwards and he'll tell us how the younger boys have done, and we'll discuss what the first team sessions look like. So there's a real sort of incorporation in what we're doing.
Well, you brought me on nicely to the next question. This is from a name that many Stoke fans will know, Wizards of Drivel, the Stoke City podcast. Can we realistically expect to see many of the youngsters to impress in pre-season involved in the first team this year?
Salsa DB's played in every single game we've had pre-season. Everyone. And that's due to him. So it really is straightforward. If the lads deserve to play, they'll get an opportunity to play. Do you know what I mean? And I say this to the first team lads all the time when they maybe come and say, oh, why am I not playing? I'm saying, well, the best players get picked throughout the week. So it's really clear for everybody to see who's the best players throughout the week. You know, and there has been times in the past where I'm getting into a Monday morning and I'm thinking, he didn't play so well at the weekend, I'm going to potentially drop him for the next game. But then from Monday to Friday, he's the best player by a mile. So he earns his right to then get another opportunity come the next game. You know, and that's important because you need to drive the standards in training, which then drives the standards on a Saturday in terms of how we play. So yeah, there'll be opportunities for younger players, certainly. But again, it'll be up to them.
And then having the youngsters that do play, by having Alex Morris involved in the first team as well, that's a great familiar face for them. So it's not as much of a daunting task, I suppose, because they are obviously still really young.
It's a direct connection. You know, it's a direct connection where they go for the 18s with Ryan Shawcross and obviously Hibby that's taking care of that age group, and then going into Alex and then coming to the first team. So yeah, that's really aligned.
Yeah.
I'm sure Ricky would probably want to touch on that as well.
Yeah, it's been a big work that we've tried to do behind the scenes. Funny enough, and part of my work when I was as a football consultant, I did some work in Denmark, and they talked about this transition coach. And the DBU appointed every club a transition coach, which was someone that sat between the academy and the first team, because they wanted to improve productivity for young players in Denmark. And it's something that I was working with and worked with the DBU and did lots of work with clubs about what that looks like. It's very similar to what we're doing here. It's that transition coach between the first team and the academy, and I see that as vital. I see the gap in a lot of academies being too wide, and it's too hard for the young players to make that jump into the first team. We want that gap to be really minimal, and we want, I've said it before and I don't want to keep going over, but accidental opportunities. We want to create opportunities for our young players by being so connected, and you saw that on our pre-season camp. Young players training with the first team, and that's what we're doing now. We're not calling Alex a transition coach, but he's kind of performing that kind of role, and that's what we want to work on behind the scenes so that it's seamless. And we do expect young players, and part of my development has all been about pathway and about pushing young players, and conversations that me and Alex will have about how can we get the next one in, what does the next one look like, how many games, and that's a healthy conversation that we're having. And I can tell you now that all my time that I've ever had them conversations with the manager, he's never ever said I don't want to play no young players. He's openly saying I want the young players to come in. So it's like a revolving door, and there is also another opportunity this season with 9 subs. So that's going to now provide more opportunities for our young players to get involved. So the rule changes will hopefully help that as well. So let's see, and it should be exciting times. If I'm a young Stoke City player, I will be working hard really every day, because I feel my chance could be around the corner. Similar question to Alex, but how impressed have you been with the youngsters over pre-season? You touched on a little bit there. I know what young people... They've gone off. No, you're right. I know what young players are like. That they need a chance. That's all they need, and they need to be given confidence. They need to be given some direction, but they need to be given an opportunity to go and work with the first team. And guess what? When you give a young player a chance, they step up. They step up, and they can cope. They're not going to be able to cope 46 games. They're not going to be able to cope week in, week out, and you can't put a big group of them. But yeah, I think you need to create a good environment, and we're doing that at the moment. So. I'm really excited by that. John, a lot of investment's gone into the academy as well, and we're kind of seeing that really show its flowers now, aren't we?
Yeah, no, look, it costs an enormous amount to keep the academy going every year, but we're very focused on now getting that productivity up. And look, there is nothing better than seeing a lad who's come through the academy then play for the first team. I think everybody, enjoys that aspect of supporting a club, and we want to do it more. And it's been particularly good seeing Sol kind of get some minutes pre-season, and especially having known his dad for so long, and it's great to see that development. You know, from that young age group, see them come all the way through. It's great to see.
And having the structure that Alex and Ricky spoke about as well, hopefully means we can have more stories like that too.
Yeah, look, I've been really pleased. I mean, when we were appointing Ricky, obviously, he's got many talents, but one of the things that attracted us was his work with academies and the success he's had with academies, and I think with Alex's enjoys giving young players a chance, and it's that combination I think will stand us in very good stead.
Ricky, if I go back to you for a second, you touched on him earlier, but Jared Dublin and the impact that he's had this summer, and I suppose you might want to mention why he was the right person to join the team as well.
I spent several days meeting lots of candidates, and my job was to have them conversations, and that's exactly why I came into this football club, to when we're looking to recruit and how we're looking to bring people in, both players and staff, and spent lots of days doing that and had some really enjoyable conversations. And then I presented a couple to John and Alex, and the three of us sat down and we met them privately, and Jared stood out as an absolute ideal candidate. I'll be honest, I've never worked with Jared, never had my workings with him before, was very limited, but I've got to say, since day one, he's hit the ground running, and probably even before day one, his energy, his enthusiasm, but his knowledge for players all around Europe is unbelievable. So if anyone's looking for some players for Football Manager, he's your man. So he knows great depth of players. He's seen a lot of players. He knows what their form's like, and he's had a real impact in the window. But he'll be the first to say as well, the recruitment team will really support him as well. It's not just been a one-man show. It's not the Jared Dublin show, but he's driving that recruitment department, and honestly, I've said this to John today, we had a meeting this morning, it feels like a recruitment department that's really now starting to discuss real talent and what does the talent market look like. We also know we had to be aligned, and we've got the Brexit rules came in, so it was fortunate we could bring in some wild cards, and we could then look into this market a little bit more. But no, Jared's really had a positive impact, and it's been really enjoyable working with him, and I look forward to continue to work with him this window and beyond. But the other point I'd like to make also about Jared, it's not just about international market as well, it's also domestic. Okay, so I don't want to get Jared labelled as he's only going to bring in foreign players. He's not doing that. He's working with me very closely and with Alex and the rest of the team about domestic talent as well. So yeah, he's been a great addition, and someone we know we can keep developing, and hopefully we'll see the benefits on the pitch.
He's also annoyingly good looking as well. I saw him glowing in Benidorm whilst I was sweating, t-shirt tan. This man's in trousers. He was in trousers, John. It was upsetting me. But what is interesting, actually, you touched on that, is the options that it gives you, Alex, I suppose, as well, because whilst you've talked about the national market, but also the international market, when you say, I need this particular kind of player, the options you then get are great, and that you're not sort of limited to what you need and what you can have.
Yeah, I think we've spoke about this before. I think the value in the domestic market's the issue. So when you've got any budget to work with, irrespective of how small or big it may be, you want to get value for money. You know, that's absolutely key. And what you find is, domestically, the amount of money some of the lads are moving for at the moment is extremely high, whereas you could get equally as good value or better value, certainly, abroad, and that's what we've found. I think the thing with Jared, what he's got for me, which is unique, you know, I've had a lot of recruitment guys over my time coaching, and he's got a combination of spotting talent, knowing what players are, which is one thing, but then having an understanding and speaking to agents and getting what the deal should look like, and combining the two things is really, really rare. You normally have one who either does that and he's a bit of a wheeler dealer, or you've got one like that who can spot a player but then can't do the other bit or can't even put any of that bit together. Whereas he combines both, and then obviously once the deal starts to heat up and the process starts, then it gets passed on to Ricky. But in terms of combining those two elements, he's as good as I've seen.
And one of the players that have come in with the benefit of looking internationally has been Ryan May as well, a name that's excited a lot of Stoke fans have seen on social media. A question that's come in is, where will Ryan fit into the side?
What do you mean by will he fit in?
I mean,
what position?
Position?
He's a centre forward.
Do you want to play him there? Do you want to play him at right
Well,
back?
I'd like to think so. I'm not going to play on left back. Do you know what I mean? So,
But you know what? With how good Jared is at scouting, he might do a great job there. Who knows? Tell us a little bit about the type of player he is for anyone that doesn't know about him.
Ryan. Well, I did call him Mummy until I get corrected, and it's now me or May. Yeah.
You didn't say Mummy then, did you?
I did initially, but then I got corrected quite quickly.
I don't think he'd like that.
So Ryan's a number 9, but he's you get all types of different number 9s. You know, you get target men number 9s like Wesley. You get number 9s like what are running behind all the time. You get guys that can link the game. Ryan is a number 9 that is really good at linking the game, but equally he's a very good finisher. And he can get in behind, albeit he's not one that's going to just hang off your shoulder and run all day. You know, so he's got a little bit of combination of both. You could play him back one as a sort of second striker, stroke 10, if you like. And he could arguably play off a side if need be. So he's really quite flexible. He's played off the left. I've seen him do that before. I've seen him playing as a number 9, seen him playing as a number 10 or a second striker. So in that sense, it gives us that flexibility that we've spoke about often last season that we lacked. But predominantly he's a number 9, and that's where we would look to play him.
Not wanted to just spotlight one player, but since he's come in, how impressive he's been with the way he's adapted. We talked a little bit about it earlier in general.
I think the best thing over the last 2 days, me and Ricky have discussed it after training, his numbers have been incredible in terms of how much distance he's covered, which is great, because that wasn't something that really was a big sort of pull for him. It was more about his quality and his touch, and he can lean into people and he can take the ball in. Very technically gifted, good finisher. So I don't want to put too much pressure on the lad. You know, he's having to adapt and come from another country, so there's a lot of... However, he is slightly older than some of the other boys, so we're hoping that he really can hit the ground running. But he's certainly the type of player that you want to pay money to go and watch. You know, he's capable of that moment of magic.
Ricky, this next one is from Steve. Steve asks, is it correct that loan players can be recalled in January? Is this a concern to you?
It's just part of all deals of loan players. It sits there. There's very rarely is a loan player a season loan without a recall in January. It's just part of the industry. It's part of the business, and it's something that you have to adapt and deal with. Is it ideal? No, it's not. But it's also potentially sometimes can be an opportunity. And if we didn't have that recall 12 months ago, we wouldn't have been able to do some of the work that we did in that January window. So we've benefited in some ways. But lightweight, it's our job to make sure if the question is referring to are we worried about players leaving in January, that's down to the football club to ensure that the players don't want to go. If the clubs want to call them back, there will be something where it's at the early part of the window, and we need to be active for that. But that's just part of when you're dealing with loan players. Both in and out. If we sent a player out on loan, Tom Edwards, for example, we've got a recall in January as well. So you can't have your cake and eat it. You have to work. It works both sides.
You've got to play the game. You've got to play the game. Sticking on the subject of loan and sticking with yourself, Ricky, actually, this is from Robin Kidsgrove. Who's responsible for monitoring the progress of players, as you mentioned there, Tom Edwards being one of them, out on loan, and then how is Alex kept informed on that?
Yes, it's a good question. We have staff internally at the academy. Dave Hibbert has led on that role, and he kind of, I've got actually a meeting with him tomorrow morning about a potential loan opportunity for one of the young players. So he will kind of be the coordinator of that, and he will then facilitate information and put a report together. And then we have an internal video system that the manager is glued to called Huddle, that we put the video clips on there, and we can then watch back the games that they play in, the highlights. We sometimes can watch the whole game, or we just watch their best moments of the game, so we can constantly get that feedback and look at the data as well. So, and what we're going to be doing this season as well with the staff that we've brought in is have individual staff that will then go to watch them. So sent the goalkeeper out on loan, so Jonathan Gould will then naturally will go and watch him more than Dave Hibbert or myself or anyone like that. So we wanted to use our staff. If we've got a centre back going out on loan, then I'll speak to Ryan Shawcross and say, right, Ryan, can you go and watch him play on a Saturday afternoon and so forth. So again, it's that collaborative, and it's something that's going through myself, coordinated by myself and by Dave Hibbert.
And I guess that's important as well, as utilising the people you've got within your team, that perhaps like Ryan, as you mentioned, they're doing with the under-18s, but with his knowledge of the game, he can really offer you a good insight, can't he?
Of course he can, and it's also an opportunity for recruitment. Any time when you go and watch a young player on loan, you're watching your own player, but you're also watching the game, and there's many a time that we come back and how did he do? Or, our player didn't do very well, but I tell you what, he done very well. So it then generates, and that's why we got to bring it together, because no point does one person doing that and they keep that information to himself. And I can tell you in the past that I've signed a player on the back of a player going out on loan and not doing very well, and he was doing that badly that we had to keep sending someone to watch him, and we got more reports on another player and we signed that player. That player is now playing in the Premier League and the other player is playing in the Premier League. So it goes to show that you need a system in place, but then you need to link into recruitment. So Jared and his team need to be aware of what games we're going to, and then we can then feed back and go, why we're out, the number 6 at so-and-so, the defensive midfielder, whoever that will be, done well, and then it gets passed on to the recruitment team.
Just whilst it's in my head, how do you decide when a club is right for the player you want to send out on loan?
So it'll be about the style of play, so how they play, the type of manager that they're going to go and work for, what interests they have, and how much of an interest is it being driven by the manager and the coaching team. Location can come into it as well. So if you've got someone that you can have easy access, because it's important that our loan players, when they go, they don't feel that that's it, gone. We want to have an invite back into the training ground and have lunch and talk about how they're doing on loan, so they feel connected. But so there's them kind of factors, but the most important thing is, are they going to play? And we want them to play, so we will be putting pressure on the team to say, it's great you taking one of our young players, but is he going to play? And if we feel he's going to play enough games, then we feel that could be a good fit.
Alex, this next question is for yourself. It comes from Rob. The team in recent years has been inconsistent and unable to string wins together. How do you go about changing that? And I know you touched a little bit on already with the mentality of it too.
Well, I think this summer's, that's what it's all been about. Is changing it. Do you know what I mean? Through personnel, through bringing different sort of characters and personalities into the building, but also we've done some great work in about the training ground. You know, Ricky's done a lot of stuff in and around the pitches. The lunchroom for the lads has all been changed. So just the feel of the club's very different. You know, John touched on it earlier in terms of, there's that sort of energy about the place at the moment. I think there's a lot of anticipation for the lads wanting to get started. So, yeah, I think there's only so many things you can change. Personnel and environment are probably two key ones. And if you can change the personnel and the environment, then what you're hoping is then it'll start to flourish for that point onwards. But, yeah, I don't think anything that's gone before now is going to have any impact on this season for me. I don't think anything. That we need to put that to bed. I mean, I think it's really important that we stop discussing what's happened in the past. We've got to create our own sort of futures and memories now, rather than harping on about what happened then, because we can't change much more than we've changed. Do you know what I mean? Literally, for the academy, to the backroom staff, to the players on the pitch. Do you know what I mean? It's all been sort of dissected and pieced back together, hopefully, so it's in a better place.
John, I hope the answer is yes to this, but have you seen a positive impact from the changes that have come through?
I think I alluded to earlier. I just think there is a miles better feel around the place, and I include all aspects of the club there. I think there's a real feeling, and I've got a real optimism about it. You know, I'm feeling good about it, and that feelings come from just walking around, feeling how people are being. Yeah, it's good.
Alex, this next question came from Richard. It's an interesting one. I think it may be a general one. Why is it that the way substitutes warm up at half-time seems to lack structure and intensity compared to pre-match? Well,
the pre-match lads are generally the ones that are going to play, so they know they're definitely playing. generally lads that are warming up at half time don't know when they're going to come on, so they might come on in the 89th minute. So you wouldn't get your body into like unbelievably sort of active mode, shall we say, and then go and sit back down for 44 minutes. So I think it really depends on when they're planning on bringing them on. That will certainly have a bearing on it.
Okay, Ricky, this next one is for you. This actually goes to the women's team. There's been some great news recently, and I know there's a lot of excitement going into this new season. The question is, what was it about Marie Hurahan that impressed you in the interviews, of course, for the role as the women's head coach?
So we did a piece about this a couple of weeks on Marie's first day. We've been really proud that we've been able to work with the Premier League on this. Something I presented to John, an opportunity I saw and a scheme that I've worked with before at one of my previous clubs, and we felt it was a great chance for us as showing innovation, and we wanted to do something a little bit different, and we're the first club that has used the Premier League scheme to have a full-time head coach, and I think we will be the trailblazer in this area, and I think other clubs will follow, which is great, but we're ahead of the curve. So we used the Premier League scheme, and we got an interview process up and running. We used the football club, HR, and all the key stakeholders. The Premier League were involved as well, and we interviewed several candidates, and that was about doing a presentation about their philosophy on the women's game and how they would look to evolve that. And then the second part of the presentation was a little bit unique. We got them to work, we got them to coach. We thought, right, we need some free sessions out of them. So we set out 2 evenings with the women's team, and they did an hour session, and we took 4 candidates to final stage. And Marie was fantastic. She was a leading candidate at first stage, and she was a leading candidate after the second stage. So we appointed, and she started just over 2 weeks ago. And the first day she met Alex and had a sit down and had a chat, and part of her role is not just to do the women's first team, but she's also going to work in the academy as well, and be part of the day release programme, which again I think is fantastic for the academy to have the female head coach working with the schoolboys, the under 14s and 15s in the academy programme. So yeah, it's a really exciting times. It's totally different. It's innovation. We're really putting ourselves out there, but we want to be there. We want to be at the front. And Marie settled in really well, and she's looking forward to her first game on the 20th of August. They kick off against West Brom. So I'll be there rooting and supporting the women's team, and there will be some games at the stadium. We're now looking at fixture lists and when can we get that out, and there'll be some initiatives around the women's game as well. But the interaction already, seeing Alex and Marie speak together, and there's already that connection as well.
How great have the players been under her guidance as well? Have they adapted really well with it?
Yeah, she's taken a few sessions now. She's been watching games and took her first game at the weekend, and she's now ramping up pre-season. They've got an out-of-bound trip this weekend, or next weekend coming up, where they're going to the army camp, and they're doing a bit of a team building activity, and it's great that she's going to be there and leading that. It's something that we planned before she came on, but we always wanted it with the head coach in place so that she can get to know the players even more and put them through their paces. So they're going to do a out-of-band and out-of-bounds activity and then kick off the following week. So yeah, some exciting times, and it's a real market that's really kind of evolving the women's game, and we're really proud that we're at the forefront of that.
Okay, I'm going to try and squeeze in a few more questions for this fans forum. John, the next one is from Paul. How would you assess the club's progress since the appointments of Alex and Ricky around a year ago? You might want to, if you blush, you might want to cover your ears. I don't know. Take it away, John.
Clearly, I mean, we finished the season 16th, so there wasn't a lot of change in our position. But I think that kind of masked the behind the scenes. Such a lot was going on, a lot of change, and we've alluded already to all the change off the field, and the people we brought in, and you know, I just think we're in a far better place than we've been before, and I think you've seen that with the work we've done over the summer. And yeah, I can only say, you know, I'm excited for the season ahead and really looking forward to it. So on that measure, you know, I think we've made real progress under them, the two of them.
This one's from Liam, John. It's for yourself. What is the aim for this season, and what would you class as a successful one? and what would you class perhaps as an unsuccessful one?
Well, I think you know we've been operating depressingly consistently in the bottom half of the table, and you know that's clearly not what any of us want. And so the first stage is, you know, we want to be operating in that top half of the table. Now, as soon as you're operating in that top half of the table, you know, you're in and around the playoffs. And, you know, I realise there's been a very high turnover of players, you know, and that'll take time to settle in. And, you know, there needs to be a patience around that. But, you know, yes, we know what we want to achieve. You know, we feel we've done a lot to try and get to where we want to be, and so we're excited for the season ahead.
And how excited are you for this Saturday, Alex?
Yeah, well, as long as we win. I'm not going to lie. If we don't win, it won't be very exciting for me, I can assure you. Yeah, listen, as a manager or head coach, whatever people want to describe it as nowadays, your life's basically dictated by a result on a Saturday. You know, and I'm sure it's the same being fans as well. You know, that whole weekend, if your team's poor or you don't win, it's pretty much ruined. I'm not going to lie. My wife will definitely say that it's ruined. So yeah, listen, it means a lot to me to win games. I mean, it's what I've done since I was 15, 16 as a player, and trust me, as a coach, the burden in terms of expectation weighs heavy on you, because obviously you've got everybody's sort of hopes and dreams for their club, and what makes their weekend and what makes their whole sort of season at your fingertips to a certain extent. So yeah, we're really looking forward to it. We know it's a big task, but I think it's something we haven't, if you look at the rebuild this summer, we haven't shirked responsibility. I mean, we haven't passed anything off. We've been really bold. We've made all the changes that we would deem are necessary, and we've added some foreign players into the mix. We've still got work to do. We've changed a lot of the academy. I mean, there's been all sorts. We haven't sort of tried to do it stage by stage, because I think, like John said earlier, sometimes you just need a complete reset, and that's what we've done, and we're hoping that that's going to bear fruits.
I was going to ask if you've missed it, but I don't think you've had a chance. Have you been so busy?
It hasn't ended really, if I'm going to be honest. You know, even when we're on holiday, you know, I'm pacing up outside the restaurant when my family's eating, talking to Ricky about who we're trying to sign. So, yeah, it is what it is.
What's the earliest he's called you? What's the latest he's called you, Ricky?
Wow. Again, it depends on the holiday, on the time, the time difference. But that is, we're in dialogue from when we get up till late at night, just constantly trying to work and improve. But we're doing it with a real enthusiasm, real passion to make this football club better. The passion, the pride for this football club. That's what we're doing. And we want them fans, we want our supporters to be really proud of our players, and really proud of the group of staff that go out and represent, because that doesn't go unnoticed. We are really proud of the kit, we're really proud of the badge, we're really proud of everything. And this stadium on Saturday, and if anyone's not coming, you got to be here Saturday. We want everyone here Saturday, making as much noise as can, and get behind them players. And it's going to be exciting. There's going to be lots of new players that are playing their first league game in England, and also their first league game for the club. And hopefully they'll be playing many, many more games to come. So yeah, we want that connection, we want that support, and we'll be doing everything we can.
I want to touch on what you just said momentarily, but Alex, back to you. Does your wife get jealous when you say good morning to Ricky before you do her?
I think she's used to it now, but what I will say is, though, this has most certainly been the busiest I've ever been, without a shadow of a doubt, at any club I've been at. You know, this has definitely been the biggest sort of task and biggest overhaul, if you want to call it that. But it was absolutely necessary. You know, and what I've never done anywhere I've ever been is shut difficult decisions, because I think fortune favours the brave.
Wow, that's a mic drop moment if you had one in your hand. That's fantastic. I've got one final question. It's exactly what Ricky just said there. It's to you, John. How important is it to, we're clock watching here, but how important is it to get this place rocking on Saturday?
Hugely. I mean, I think that, you know, we know our home form hasn't been great, you know, and you know, we've got the players, you know, we've got the team ready, etc. But you cannot underestimate how important the crowd, you know, in those difficult moments, you know, the crowd being behind you gets you through those. And especially when you've got new players, some young players who are making their first appearance sometimes in the English game, having that support, having them feeling the crowd are behind them, then the players not feeling scared to make a mistake, so that the crowd will play an enormous part in us having a successful season.
Thank you to all three of you, and you've all timed that perfectly as well. You should all work in radio if it doesn't work out here. Thank you so much for your time today, really appreciate it. Big round of applause for our three panellists.